Alright guys, M-Tech Guy here. This E46 is a flipping swimming pool. I can't believe it. So I've been daily driving this car for just over a week now, and the first day we had some heavy rain. I came out of work. When I jumped in the car, I noticed that when the footwell lights lit up there, the passenger side footwell was full of water. It was like a mini paddling pool. I did get a couple of photos. Check it out. So yeah, I couldn't believe it because the car's in such good shape. I was absolutely gutted to see that. So anyway, when I got home that evening, what I did, I carried out some very basic checks just to see if I could see where the water was getting in, but it was dark, it was cold, and a million other things I needed to get done that evening, so I didn't have much time. But what I'll do now is I'll just show you what checks I did carry out initially, and then we're going to go a bit further this morning to see if we can see exactly where the water's getting in. So let's dig a bit deeper. So this passenger footwell had a heap of water in there, like you could see on the photos, and I was absolutely gutted because it was only a few days before I'd just been through and shampooed all the carpets, cleaned up all the interior. It's smelling nice and fresh, and I had all this dirty rainwater in there now. But that might explain that very minor faint smell that was in the background of the interior there. The main reason why I gave it a good shampoo and a good clean. And looking by the condition of the car overall, I think it spent most of its time living in a garage, but there'll have been the odd time when it was out left in the rain. So I imagine it's had a little bit of water in here previously, and that probably contributed to that very faint weird smell that was in the interior, which is gone now because I've cleaned it all up. But of course we've had water in there again. So initially, usually the number one culprit with an E46 or most BMWs is the vapor barriers behind the door cards. Now they're stuck onto the sheet metal of the door with some butyl tape. But as you know, with many older BMWs, it's not unusual for them to have had a window regulator or two in the past. And that butyl tape has to be cut away to be able to remove the vapor barrier to gain access to the window regulators. And a lot of the time, they're not stuck back correctly, or the material that is used for the vapor barriers, it's like a weird foam material that can get torn very easily. So it's not unusual when these cars get a little bit older for the vapor barrier to be letting a bit of water through the door, and what will happen is it'll dump that water into the interior. So that evening when I got back home, one of the first things I checked was for any signs of water droplets along the sill covering there and along the edge of the carpet. Now, most of the carpet was pretty damp, but I think what had happened is it had wicked most of it up into the corners there and up towards the sill covering. Right at the top it felt relatively dry though, but there wasn't a drop of water on the inner sill covering or the outer one there. So that tells me that the vapor barrier must still be doing its job. And same along the bottom of the door there, it was completely bone dry, so everything was looking good with regards to the vapor barrier on that front passenger side door. So next up, I'll pop the bonnet and we'll have a good look under there. So the drain points in these bins at either rear corner of the engine bay there, you've got your DME box there, the brake fluid reservoir on a right-hand drive car on that side. They have drain points in the bottom, and if they get blocked up with leaves and muck and dirt, what can happen is these little corners can start filling up with water. Had a good look down there right to the bottom, but it was bone dry. So that was a good sign. And if this side does start filling with water, you got way bigger problems, because if that DME starts getting wet, then it could get expensive pretty quickly. So yeah, that was looking nice and dry in there. And then I had a good look in the windscreen cowl area, especially at each back corner there. These areas can get all clogged up with leaves and dirt. But to be honest with you, it looks like this car's spent most of its life living in a garage, so there's not that much debris in and around the panel gaps and the windscreen cowl area. And it was all looking pretty dry, so it didn't look like it was getting blocked up at the drain points and then dumping water up into the interior there. Right, so that's looking dry. The vapor barrier's looking dry. Right, now the next area of concern is that this car has a sunroof. And these BMWs are notorious for having leaky sunroofs as they get a bit older. Now the sunroof seal around the top there is designed to let a little bit of water by, and the sunroofs have 4 drain points, one from each corner of the opening there, and these drain down. It's basically a hose that goes right down the A-pillar trim, down behind the front fender, and then exits just behind the wheel, and then at the rear it goes down the C-pillar, and then again down through the body of the car and exits behind the rear wheel. Now what can happen over time is that these drain points can start getting clogged with dirt and debris and bits of leaves and this type of thing, especially if the car lives outside, and especially if you park it in a driveway or somewhere at work where there's a lot of trees about. And then what happens is you get a decent heavy downpour of rain, and that water can't drain off, and it'll just back up through the drain hoses there, and it'll end up dumping water, overflowing through the sunroof opening, and it'll leak behind the headliner, and that'll dribble down the pillar trims, and eventually it'll just dump the water into the interior of the car. And with these E46s especially, there's a little rubber elbow that basically clips onto the corner of the drain point of the sunroof opening there, and then joins onto the pipe that goes down the A-pillars there. Now these hoses have been known to just pop off on their own. I'm not sure how it comes about. They can't have been put on very tightly from the factory. Maybe it's something to do with when the sunroof's open, maybe all the wind rushing by and basically just the turbulence of it might be enough just to vibrate them hoses off. But it has been known for these hoses to pop off. So essentially the sunroof will just drain water straight into the headliner there, and then eventually that'll find its way down and dump it in the interior. Now, from where I got to the other night, I believe it's probably a sunroof leak issue that I've got going on here. So first things first, we need to get the sunroof open, and what I'll do is I'll just pour a little bit of water in the corner of each of the drain points there and see if it exits down at the bottom underneath the car, and see if the drains are doing their job to start off with. Now it has to be said that up to now I haven't owned this car very long. I've only had it for a couple of weeks or so, and I haven't had the sunroof open yet because these sunroofs can present issues with the mechanisms and the sliders and the guides and everything. They can get jammed up, so I don't want to end up in a position where I'm backed in a corner where the sunroof's stuck half open, and then I've got to get it fixed and spend some money and whatnot. So I've left it closed. The only thing I do know is the blind, the interior blind underneath the glass there, will only open about 4 inches before it gets stuck. This is a common problem again on the E46s. I had this on my E46 coupe, the 330 Ci. It's a repair that I did do previously, didn't film it though, so we're going to do that repair on this car at some point, but we're not going to do that just yet. We've got bigger fish to fry with this interior water leak. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to see if we can actually get the sunroof open. The blind might not open all the way, but that doesn't matter, because as long as we can get the glass out the way, then at least we can see the drain points, get a bit of water in there, and see if these drains are doing the job. See if it opens all the way. Right, so that's a good start. The sunroof actually works, and the blind's going right the way back with it. Now that blind will need a bit of fixing later on, but first of all we need to get these leaks fixed, so let's see if these sunroof drains are doing the job properly. Right, so I'll get you guys in here with the camera, and you might just be able to make out the small drain hole in the corner there. Just there. So that's where the water needs to exit, so it collects in this tray here, and it's supposed to drain down there and exit under the front wheel from this corner. I don't know if you can see it in there, but down in the corner at the rear there is another drain hole. Right, so let's see if we can get these things draining properly. Right, so I've got a bottle of water here, so we'll try the driver's side corner first. We'll just gingerly pour some water in there. That dribbling down, so you can see that it's taking a leak right where it should do there. So that's good, and that came straight out. Right, let's try the passenger side. So that is leaking out of there pretty quickly, so that tells me that the hose is still connected and it's not blocked. So that's interesting. So that water must be getting in somewhere else. Right, we'll try the rears as well. That's while we're at it. Yeah, that's draining down nicely there. And the last corner. Four for four. They all seem to be draining off okay, which is good. But then that still leaves me with the question of how the heck is this water getting in that passenger side footwell? Now, like I say, the car is in very good condition. Even all the windscreen seal and everything doesn't look like it's got any UV damage. The same with the windscreen cowl there. That all looks good. All the weather stripping around the doors looks absolutely fine and not torn or coming apart or anything. And if we have a look in the passenger footwell there, it's absolutely dry at the minute. It still feels a tiny bit damp from all the water that was in there the other day, but there's no new liquid in there, that's for sure. So where the heck is this water getting in? So where is it getting in? I was almost certain it was going to be them sunroof drains, but they seem good as gold, and there's certainly no water getting in the interior there. It definitely looks like there's plenty of water exiting out of all four holes there. So what's going on? So looking back at the photos, it almost looks like it was trickling down from there against the carpet, and then obviously there was heaps pulled up there, and it had wicked sort of halfway up the sides here, and it had actually gone through to the back about that far, although the rest of the rear footwell was completely dry. So I'm pretty certain it wasn't that left rear door vapor barrier. Maybe I'm wrong about this vapor barrier, even though it looked completely dry along here. Maybe just for certainty, we should give this vapor barrier a good test, and then we can always pull the door card off just to double check that. So to be able to test it, what I'm going to do is close this door, and then we'll just give it a good spray down with the hose on the outside there where the water would get in through the glass seal there, and then we'll check to see if there's any dribbles out of the bottom of the door and getting onto the plastic there. Maybe by the time I'd gotten home, maybe it had all sort of dried out, I don't know, but there wasn't any signs of water along there or along there. But anyhow, let's give it a go, and then we'll see what we get. Right, let's have a look. Now the doors do have a drain point there, which is worth making sure it's all clean of debris, which mine is. And it all seems to have been exiting where it should be, along the outer edge there. So there's nothing that looks like it's coming through underneath the door card, which is good. And again, it does look dry along the sill there, on that inner sill. So this front footwell does sit a bit higher than the rear, but I'm wondering, just due to the way it's parked, obviously New Zealand we drive on the left hand side of the road, so the car would have been parked at that sort of angle with the camber of the road. I'm not sure if it slopes forward or backwards, so I'm wondering if the road does slope forward quite a bit, whether it's letting water in the back footwell there, and then it's just all found the low point in that corner there. So next up, I think I'll just double check the vapor barrier on the rear passenger side door, just so we can eliminate the possibility of any water that might have got through there, and then just track down to the front there. It's giving us a misleading path to follow here, because at the minute sunroof looks good, the vapor barrier looks good. I don't know. Right, let's get rid of this bag. I was using the bag as a bit of a foot mat, just because I'd had all the floor mats out of there, just to try and let these carpets thoroughly dry out after I'd shampooed them. But of course 2 days later it got a hell of a lot more water in there. As you can see, we're nice and dry down the interior panels there. Carpets are dry also. So let's try this vapour barrier. And as you can see, we're just doing one area, one seal at a time. You don't want to just start dumping water on the top of the car, let it cover the car, and then you find the water inside there, but you can't really isolate it to one seal, one vapour barrier, one drain point or anything. So it's important that you just do one small area at a time. So that's why I just sprayed water across them edges there. Right, let's have a look. So again, looks like it's draining correctly at the sheet metal at the outer point there. And we're bone dry along the bottom edge where the door card meets the sheet metal of the door there. There's nothing there. And again, a telltale sign, as you'll see water normally dribbling on the interior sill edges here and then down into the carpet. So that looks pretty dry. Now the door upper seals look like they sit nice and secure against the trim panels there, against the shadow line trim. And again, the rubber looks like it hasn't deteriorated over the years. It hasn't seen much UV sunlight. But anyhow, just as a matter of course, we'll spray a bit of water over the upper edges now and see if we get anything obvious that might be creeping through. So these inner seals still look nice and dry. Got the dribble happening down at the bottom here. And again, we look at the inner edges, doesn't seem to be anything getting in there. And the carpet's still proving to be dry. There is a bit of moisture in that corner there. I think that's just the remnants of what's left over from the other day. I think we'd actually see some droplets on there if it was getting through. Now, I don't believe it's getting in the door there, but I might just try the windscreen seal now. There was a tiny bit of moisture there, but like I say, I'm not sure if that's just, I've wiped it all up now, but I'm not sure if that's just the remnants of where it was absolutely saturated in the corner there. I only dabbed it up with an old towel. So we'll try the windscreen trim now, because this does look pretty dry around the door still. And this will also check the windscreen cowl area. No, it's dry. And what is going on here? Where's it getting in? Dry. We'll just try the door seal again. Fingers are nice and dry there. Still dry. Right, let's try the actual windscreen cowl area, because they do have some drain points from the pollen filter tray and whatnot. So just give that a bit of a squirt. It's still dry. What is going on? I don't know. I don't know. So vapour barrier looks alright. The rear vapour barrier looks alright. Windscreen seal, door seal, windscreen cowl, sunroof. Do you know what? I went into this video after the little checks I did the other night in the dark. I was almost certain it was going to be sunroof drains, but doesn't seem to be the case. But just for the sake of it, I'm tempted to pull these inner A-pillar trims off, and just to see if there's any signs of water behind there, because it might actually be just pouring down through the headliner and through the pillar trim there. But again, it didn't dump it into the interior. Maybe it was just the angle of the car, I don't know. But by rights, it's sitting relatively flat at the minute, although the rear is lower than the front. When it was parked at work, it was definitely sitting more leaning over to the left with the camber of the road there. So whether that's altered the exit path of the water, I don't know, but I think what I might do, just pull that pillar trim off, and we might even just pull the corner of the headliner down to see if there's anything weird going on there. But other than that, I'm a bit stumped with this one. Right, so that's that off. Now we've got 3 Torx screws there, so we'll remove them now. We take a T20. Right, so that's the 3 screws out, so now we can remove this A-pillar trim just carefully, because we don't want to break it. So it just pulls out at the top there like that, and we need to slide it from behind the dash there. It's a bit tricky. Oh yeah, you hear that snap? That was the little tongue that locates just behind the dash there snapping. So this is the reality of working on an older car. It's 23 years old, so I'm not going to pull that any further. That can just sit there out the way. But unfortunately, that snapped. Now, I did replace all these pillar trims on the coupe that I had, the 330 Ci, just because the fabric had gone all sort of baggy looking and horrible. This doesn't look too bad apart from what's in the corners there, but I can live with it. So I think we're just going to leave that be for now, and we'll just hook that back into place once we're finished. We won't go tearing that out because it might be impossible to relocate if that part of that plastic tongue just stays where it is instead of coming out. So yeah, welcome to the real world, guys. So we're looking inside here and up behind the airbag there. I can't see any signs of any water that might have gotten in there, and we did give that drain point a good test earlier, and I think they'll be showing signs of little water droplets. It was running down the interior A-pillar trim there. And as far as the windscreen goes, you can see the urethane of the windscreen there that seals it to the body of the vehicle. If we just run our fingers up there, there's no signs of any water, and it does look like a decent seal. So while I'm here, I might just lower this corner of the headliner just to see if that hose is attached properly or if there's anything obvious up there. Just while we're this deep in, we might as well just go the extra step. So I've got to disconnect the panic handle here, and also disconnect the sun visor points there, and we can lower that corner down and have a good look, see if there's anything weird going on behind it. Right, now if we gingerly pull the headliner down, just, we don't want to crease it because it does fold pretty easily. But look in there, you can just about make out that that little rubber hose is attached to the sunroof drain, just there. All right, so the sunroof drain is doing its thing, obviously. In that corner, no signs of water. The little rubber elbows still in position. So let's piece all this lot back together. All right, guys, so that's all back together now. Everything's looking okay, so I'm pretty confident there's actually no water getting in the usual places in this corner of the car. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on here. Maybe we'll just give this whole area one big blast and see if we can see if it's coming in anywhere. That's weird. So that's dry. We'll just go around the whole door to start off with. Dry. So we can see got a little bit of water there, and if we look here, it looks like there's a bit of water getting through there too. So maybe maybe this vapor barrier is letting past somewhere and it's tracking down to the bottom and then out through there. All right, let's pull this door card off and we'll have a look. All right, guys, so I think we might have found our culprit here. Look at the state of this. So obviously someone's been in at this vapor barrier previously. You can see there's lines here where it's all been taped up. They've tried to tape it up from behind as well. It's a right mess. Whether they've done a window regulator in the past, and you can see the water coming from there, look. It's obviously tracking down here and then getting on the carpet. So obviously someone's been in there, done a window regulator or something in the past and just had a bit of trouble there. Oh, I hope they haven't used silicone on here. It still looks like butyl tape. So I think what I'm gonna have to do, sometimes if they just have a small little tear on the edge, like ½ an inch, you can sometimes get away with just a bit of gaffer tape, a bit of duct tape. But I think with this we're way beyond. And look at it, it's not even stuck down properly. So I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to buy a new vapor barrier and get some of the butyl tape and just basically start all over again, which is a shame. I mean, I could look at getting one off a wrecked car, but to be honest with you, it's probably going to be in the same state, and if it's not, by the time you've separated it from the door, even if it is in 100% condition, it's quite a difficult job to cut the whole lot away. Probably end up tearing it in the process. So I think what I'm going to do is bite the bullet. We're going to get a new vapor barrier, get some butyl tape, and then we're going to get that replaced because we need to get on top of this leak. It's no good. Alright, so that explains that. So what I might do before we get too carried away ordering the one vapor barrier, I might just go around all 4 doors, give them a good soaking down and just see if there's any dribbles at the bottom of the door cards. And if there is, that might indicate another bad vapor barrier. So let's take a look. Okay, so the left rear looks all right. The driver's side looks nice and dry there. Right, now this looks like it's definitely leaking also, and this one is the one that had the window regulator done not that long ago. So I might, just as a matter of course, get a new vapor barrier for that one too, and then we can just get the two tidied up and no more water leaks. Now then, before I get carried away ordering any parts, I might just whip this door card off just to confirm that it is the vapor barrier that does need replacing. We don't want to be spending any money unnecessarily. Let's take a look what's going on behind there. Alright, so I've got the door card out of the way now, and if we take a good look at this vapor barrier, it's not looking bad at all, to be honest, especially compared to the horror show that was what we just looked at on the front passenger door. But if we look closely down the bottom here, see it does have a little tear there, so I imagine that's where the water's trickling down and finding its way out. So the ultimate way would be to replace the whole vapor barrier, but of course we're trying to approach these little repairs with spending as little money as possible. So although that front passenger side door definitely wants a new vapor barrier because the whole thing's just been patchworked up like a patchwork quilt, I think with this one I can probably get away with just repairing that. I have done it before where there's just a little tear like that, used a bit of gaffer tape, a bit of duct tape, and then if we fully seal it with some new butyl tape behind there and just give it a really good seal, I think we might get away with that. And again, to do it properly would be to replace the whole vapor barrier, but realistically I think just for the sake of that little tear there, I think we'll get away with just a little repair, and then we can put it all back together and see how we get on with it. Alright, so I'll get the parts that we need organised, and then I think we'll revisit this job, do that front left vapor barrier, and then we'll perform a repair on this one, and hopefully that'll be all these bloody water leaks resolved. Alright guys, so there we have it. We've finally got to the bottom of where that water is entering the vehicle, and like I say, I was pretty certain it was coming through the sunroof drains there, but it wasn't the case. It'd be that vapour barrier at the front there on the passenger side. So what I'll do now is I'll go and hunt around, see where I can get the parts available that we need for cheap. I want to spend as little money as possible, but we want to get it fixed properly. We don't want any more water getting in the vehicle. I want to get this sorted sooner rather than later. So once I get all the bits and pieces that I need, what I'll do is I'll put another video together just specific to replacing the vapour barriers on an E46. Now if you found the video interesting or useful, don't forget to give it a like, and make sure you stay tuned on the channel for more BMW E46 content on a budget. Consider subscribing if that's your cup of tea. I'm MTech Guy. Thanks a lot for watching.